What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today we are back on the Sierra. I'm gonna call it part 2 of the Ridetech drop install. So in the last video you guys saw, and I know it was really long, we dropped this thing, and that's one of the reasons I didn't want to put this in that video. I knew I was gonna install them, I had the parts, but today we're gonna be putting the helper bags on. And guys, after we do that, we're gonna talk about ride quality. We're gonna hook up to the trailer over there. I'm gonna show you kind of how these things work. But anyway, today we're gonna get these installed. And honestly, guys, normally I put these in at the same time I'm doing the flip kit, because on, like, let's say the helper bags on the green truck, for instance, you have to have the axle loose because a piece slides under the actual saddle. So on this kit, it is not like that, and this is designed specifically for the Ridetech drop, so I don't know if it works on anything else. Guys, look, so far I am super happy. I haven't driven this a ton, but I have driven it, and the ride quality is awesome. But we're gonna talk a little more about that in this video. Here's what I'm gonna tell you though. This is the parts that we're going to be installing in today's video. Honestly, guys, it's a pretty simple setup, and the fact that you can put this on after and not have to do it at the same time gives you the ability to see if you're gonna need it. Well, here's what I will tell you before we get started on this, but this is all the parts we're gonna be installing. I'll list them in the link down below. Look, I think you need it, and here's why. First off, now I've got this set at the lowest setting, right? So it's 4.5 inches is what I think we got a drop in the back, maybe a little more. But on these trucks, guys, without a C-notch, it is very, very close to the frame. So when I hit a big bump, it does hit the bump stop right now. So, and that's without hauling anything. So nothing in the bed. The only thing I've got additional weight is obviously the bed cover, but when you hit a bump, it does hit the bump stop. Now, you have some adjustability back there. You could raise it, but I like the look of this. So still wanna be able to use it as a truck. The helper bags are gonna give me that ability. So when it starts to, come down, when we put some weight in the back, this will give us the ability to level it back out. Same thing when we got a trailer on. So anyway, well, like I said, we'll talk a little more about the ride quality and what I've got suspension set on a little later in this video when we go for a drive, because I'm gonna show you with and without the trailer. So anyway, let's get this thing off the ground, because we're going to have it off the ground in order to put this in. I'm going to probably, guys, I'm not gonna fight with having the wheels in the way. So what I'm going to do is we're gonna lift it up. We're gonna get the back wheels off. Just make sure that you get it supported somewhere. I'm gonna probably support by the frame, similar to what I did when I was lifting it, just in case I have to move the axle down and let the suspension droop in order to get those bags in place. So I'm gonna do that off camera real quick. Make sure you chock your front wheels. I got my wheel chocks up there. We'll put those in, lift this thing off the ground, get it supported by jack stands, the wheels off, and then we will get started. Now that we're to that point, you can see we got it supported by jack stands. I've still got a majority of the weight on the rear end because I wanted to show you guys this. All right, so I've maybe put, I don't know, 10 miles on this so far, and look at that. You could see that ring where that bump stop's been hitting. And this, I wanted to leave the suspension loaded up here so you could see how close I'm talking. Now, do we have adjustment in this kit? Yeah, obviously, but I'm going for the lowest look possible. So in order to get that, then I've got it set at the lowest setting back there. So the shackle is at the top hole. And so this is ultimately what I want as far as looks go. And like I said, I still think it can perform as a truck, but I really think you need the helper bag. So the helper bag, guys, is going to install back here on the back side, and there's a plate that sandwiches around the frame, but it's gonna set in this area right here. So let's go get part of that kit. I'm gonna have to open some bolts and see exactly how it needs to be positioned, because it does hook in to your leaf spring down here in this area, and there is a right and left bracket. So over here, you can see we have different brackets. These are opposite, so one goes on the right, one goes on the left. But before we get to that point, the instructions are calling for us to assemble this. Now, this T-fitting and this won't be used yet. I've got an idea where I kind of want to put this, but we'll get to that. That'll be late in the video here. Interesting. Okay. I like that they include a cap that you can also use to deflate it, because for now we're just going to use a manual valve, if that makes sense. So we're going to air it up with a, I'm not using an onboard compressor. They do offer that as well. But we need to get all our bolts open here. And once we get them open, then we'll assemble. We need to assemble this to this and this to this. But in order to do that, we got to get all these open first, and then we'll kind of talk about, they're all labeled, which is really nice. So you know what goes to what. It's not a guessing game. So let's get this broken out and see what goes to where. Aside from those air fittings, I'm kind of setting things up here. These are the fittings that are going to sandwich around the frame, or the bolts. And the only other thing is we have to connect it to the leaf pack, so that, and then this is to connect the bag to the actual bracket. This is the one we actually need, but I'm just separating everything out before we get started. I've got them oriented, you know, in the direction they go. So this is the driver's side. When you're looking at it, like this driver's side, this is towards the front of the truck. So the rear end's gonna be here, the back of the truck, back bumper on the driver's side will be here. So that hook will hook in. That's part of the location process. But, all right, so we need to put this to this, which we've got our hardware here to do. And I'm one of those picky guys that I'd kind of like to have, you can't get real crazy because this is just a piece of plastic on the bottom, I believe, maybe metal, but you still don't want to over tighten this. I don't think there's a torque spec in here. It just says tighten, but here's what I will tell you. It is supplied with some Loctite. You can see there's some red Loctite here. So, but anyway, I was saying I'm picky because I want my Firestone and Air Ride to face a certain way. So I'm gonna attempt to get this on here. We'll come back and put the thread locker on it here in just a second. I just want to show you guys kind of how it assembles. So we'll get it started like that. And then our top plate, and these aren't side specific, all right? So you can see that they're identical as far as shape. You don't have to worry about putting the right side with the right thing there. Here's what you do have to know though. This is going to be the inside of the frame. So what we're going to do is we're gonna thread this guy on. And then from that point, we'll get the, you know, the Air Ride where we want it. This right here, which has already got tape on it, Teflon tape, will screw in up top. And we'll have to get the appropriate size wrenches, obviously, to make this happen. But this guy here needs to face 90 degrees, and it's needing to face the front. So we need to thread this guy in to where it's facing forward. And it's kind of one of those things where you're gonna have to have everything kind of lined up. There'll be a little bit of movement afterwards, but I may set it up in the truck and just make sure that my alignment's good as far as this being square with the bottom plate, and then we'll get it all snugged up. The instructions say to go ahead and snug up the top one here, which we're going to do. I'm gonna put a little thread locker on it. And then it doesn't give, like I said, it doesn't give you a torque spec or anything, but it says not to use an impact, which we're not going to, but it's 1 1/8 inches. It's a pretty big, I'm just gonna put it in here. And I'm not getting crazy amounts here. But like I said, I'm trying to orient this. We're gonna have some movement at the bottom since it's not tight. I guess we can reach in afterwards and snug it down. That's what it's saying. I actually may want this to face out. And you don't have to be as picky as me. I was gonna face it back, but I don't like the way it looks that way. So now we're gonna take this 1 1/8 inches and snug this down. And like I said, don't get crazy, and it specifically says, do not use a torque wrench or a impact. That's pretty snug. You don't want it moving. That's as much as I can get on it. So, look at that. All coming off of my hands. Now we can put this in, and this, because we're messing with the driver's side, needs to face towards the front of the truck. So we're gonna have to go grab, looks like a 1/2 inch, and snug this down. It's actually 9/16, and it does not matter if it's facing forward, backwards. You want it to face towards the inside, forward, backward, or the inside, because your line's gonna be coming in. You don't want it to be facing outside towards the tire where you could potentially rub through a line. So we'll just go until it starts to get snug. And like I said, it already has thread locker on it. Ooh, it's getting snug. Let's go a little further. There we go. That's perfect. That's about 90 degrees. It's actually facing forward. All right, so now that we've got that all put together, I'm gonna do the other side here off camera, and then we're gonna get up to the truck and see exactly how these things pinch together. I've got them both assembled now. I will tell you there is one difference. You see the plates? This is the driver's side plate. So I'm just showing you the passenger side, but I wanted you to know there is a difference. Make sure you put the right plate on the right side. This faces forward on the driver's side. I'm actually showing you guys the passenger side. So I wanted to show you that before we got over to the truck. So you're gonna need, you know, this bracket on this, and then you're gonna need one of these guys to clamp it down. We're ready to put this in. So this right here, so your hook is going to hook up against the back, this corner U-bolt. So we're gonna set this thing in there, and you're gonna have to kind of squish it down, obviously, to get it hooked to the frame. But once we get it hooked on that part, that's why we leave this bottom one loose. We need to make sure that this goes around the back side of the frame here, or the leaf spring, and we're gonna pull it until that hook's grabbing on, right? Once we do that, we're gonna drop our bolts in here, which honestly, guys, you may have to pull it out a little bit, drop your bolts in, and then rehook it, because your brake lines are very, very close here. In fact, I'm gonna do that. We're gonna put our bolts in and then rehook it. Just because it seems to me like a little easier to do it that way. Makes it a little harder to hook. Come on. There we go. I heard my washer go flying there. May have to unhook the brake line bracket here in order to make this happen, because I can't get my bolts in with it hooked up against that like I'm supposed to. So I may do that off camera real quick. Just take that 13 out and move that. I was actually able to get them in there. I was in the way of the camera though. So, all right, once we get those in place, we're gonna go ahead and put this plate, the smaller plate here on the bottom with the washers and the nut, the nylock nut that comes with it. And we need to torque those to 50 foot-pounds. Here's the deal though, while we're torquing those and while we're tightening them, you need to make sure that you're pulling that hook up, you're putting pressure on that hook back. If that makes sense. I'll show you in just one second. Let me get this threaded on here. Always dropping washers. And this is 5/8. Threaded my glove up in there. What I'm saying is we need to pull tension back against this while we snug this up. Okay, so we're wanting it to hook onto that leaf spring or that U-bolt while we're snugging these down. So you're gonna need a 5/8. I'm using 2 wrenches because you kind of want to alternate back and forth, similar you would on the leaf spring down here at the bottom and the U-bolts. You're gonna kind of want to, you don't want to run this one all the way down and get it snug and then try to do the other one. So you kind of want to do it back and forth while you're holding pressure back, keeping that hook up against things. Once you've got them snugged up, and like I said, keeping pressure back here, we can go ahead and torque these guys to 50 foot-pounds. I'm gonna put my torque wrench down here, get 50 on them, and then we will be finished. We can move back to where it sandwiches around the frame here. Once we have that bottom portion torqued down, then we need to kind of align this thing with the frame. Holy cow, that's a tight fit. And then we have a plate to put behind it. Now guys, there is a wiring harness that runs back behind there, so you're gonna have to sneak up on the side of it, on the inside. If we can, yeah. It's getting there. There we go. Now, we need to kind of push this thing up against it, and we need to grab our bolts that come with the kit. And we're gonna put 2 up top. Obviously, we're gonna put 2 washers on the back side, and then 2 on the bottom, like this. If that makes sense. And then these get torqued to 75. So I know that's quite a bit more. And you should be able to do all this from the outside without getting under the truck. So let me get the washers and the nut on the back of that, and we should be set. Once we have that plate in and torqued down to 75 like we have, we need to snug this bolt up. It's a 9/16 down here in the bottom. Remember, we didn't tighten this up to begin with. And it's going into, you know, an aluminum insert, so just be careful. Don't get crazy on tightening it. There's no torque specs, and probably because most people don't have crow's feet to snug it down. So we'll get it snug, and then we're on to running lines. So it's important when you're running the air lines, we keep them away from any heat, right? So you don't want them to get hot. You don't want them to be up against any metal that's gonna rub them. So here's what I'm thinking. We have a nice little channel right here that's going to stay cool. Now, with that being said, there is kind of a sharp edge here. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is I'm going to route it across. So we'll plug it in. I'm gonna route it through there because I can see all the way to the other side. And I kind of got an interesting spot where I want to put the valve. Normally I put it on the back, like by the license plate. But for now, I'll show you how this plugs in. This is a push lock connection. So when you literally just have to push it into place, that is it. So it's not really hard to do. And then if you ever want to release it, there's a little collar here. If you push that collar in and pull your line out, but I'll show you that here in just 1 second. So you can see I have it pushed out to the other side, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to plug in. That's it. It's stuck. Now, let's say we want to pull it out. If we push this collar in, it'll pull right out. But you want to make sure you've got some good cuts, good, nice, straight cuts. Otherwise, you could potentially have a leak. But here's what I am going to do. I'm going to put a little bit of black tape. I'm going to kind of put my finger here and show where it needs to be kind of maybe just an additional reinforcement. I don't think it's going to move around a lot. And this is carbon fiber, so it's not as like, you know, but I guess you could potentially go through a line. And look, it's not one of those things where if you lost all your air, it would be a huge deal. You could still make it home. It's not like, you know, your suspension's resting on this, but I think it's a good idea to just put some additional pieces where it may intersect, but this will keep it away from all of the exhaust and anything that might get warm. I kind of like this. You can see I went around it a couple times with just some electrical tape for some added protection. We've got this in there. Let's go the other side. Now that we're here on the other side, got it ran through the frame, as you can see very well, the bed. I'm gonna tape up this area too, but here's what needs to happen. We have a T-fitting, right? Because we don't have 2 separate valves. So this is going to plug into the T just like it does here. But what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm gonna put it in the gas tank door because there's like a def for a diesel. So I'm gonna run it up here and then I'm gonna cut it
I'm gonna put my T up here in the front. So like right up here where this ground is, I'm gonna put my T right there. I'm gonna zip tie to that. And then, so guys, when you're cutting this, it's very important to make a very straight cut. Use a really sharp razor blade and get a good solid straight cut there. But once I cut here, then I'm gonna, like I said, go back and tape that. We'll plug it into the T, and then we'll use the excess to go from this line up to the T. And then we have to, I think I've got enough to go from the T up to the gas door. It's just right up here, so it shouldn't be too bad. You can see I've got T-fitting in place. These lines kind of zip tied together. I may do some more zip tying, but ultimately here's what I was thinking. Hey, let's put it up here, right? So that would be an easy spot. I was planning on putting it right here in the middle. Here's the problem, look at this. There's no structure there, guys, that won't work. So I'm thinking maybe right here. I can reach up in there. I just put my hand back behind the bed and I can get in that area. So I'm gonna go grab our valve, and we're gonna attempt to see if we can drill a hole that size and put it right there. And there's enough room on the back of it for the line to come in. The other place I could put it, which I don't know, I may do that as well because it's a little straighter shot, is up top here. Actually, I think I'm gonna do that because that will put less bend on the line. I've got more room behind that. I don't know. I may just put the line up in there. Let's thread this thing up in there and see what I've got as far as, because this line's not like super easy to bend. Yeah, I don't know. I may have to experiment here and just see, but one of these places is where I'm going to drill a hole. Here's where I decided to put it, right here. I just drilled the size hole that we needed to do this guy. So now we need to push that. I'm gonna hook the airline up to it first, then we're gonna push it up through there, and then we will put the jam nut on the top side, snug it down. This is what we've got all finished up. So you can see I've zip tied to that ground wire that comes down. Got all the lines zip tied up nicely. Got the extra tape on there in case this, you know, moves around. And this is what we ultimately have. Now there is a cap for it, but I want to test this. So I'm gonna go grab my air over there. We're going to try to air this thing up, make sure these bags hold air, and then we'll be good to put the wheels back on at that point. What I figured I'd do is I'd put air in them while you guys were able to see those things inflate for the first time. Uh-oh, I hear air leaking on the other side. Let's go check it out. Oh, yep. Oh, no, maybe not. Maybe it's just that filling up. Let's test and see how much is in it. You gotta keep 5 pounds in at all times to keep from wrecking the bags, which makes sense. I hear a leak. Wondering if it's here. It's leaking somewhere because I can hear it hissing. So what we can do is we can grab a little soapy water and spray and see if we can find our leak. It almost sounds like it's at this joint right here. I didn't spray any water on it because I found out it was in the fitting up here. So what I did was I rewrapped it with Teflon tape. We're going to cinch it down, fill these guys back up, and see what happens now. You don't want to be, I mean, it was a slow leak. You don't want to be driving down the highway, especially if you load up a trailer, you know, and you're expecting these things to level you out, keep you off the bump stops. I'm going down the road and that thing lose pressure, that would suck. I mean, you can still make it, but let's try again here. We're gonna air it back up and listen for another leak. There's really only 2 places it can leak. One would be in that joint, right, that had Teflon tape on it. Like I said, I redid that. It actually sounded like it was in the line, because when I would move the line around, it would stop. So what I did was I pulled the line out, recut it, and put it back in. Here's the downside. I'm running out of like enough line. So I really need to go grab another section of line and probably run it a little bit different. I just don't have any more of this 1/4 inch line. And guys, I told you to make sure you cut nice and square, and the cut was pretty square, but there was one little burr on the end of it. So I think that's probably what was causing it. But here's how I'm going to test it. We've got it set at 40 psi, and I'm going to let it set for a couple hours and see if it bleeds off. So if I come out here in a couple hours and it's down to 30, obviously we have a leak. And you can go through, grab some soapy water and spray and see if any of the areas bubble. I think we've probably got it at this point, but I think you should test it overnight. We're going on about 2 hours with it not leaking, so at this point I'm going to say we're good. It's really hard because when you hook your gauge up to that up there, it lets air out when you're hooking the gauge up. So just try to be, obviously you don't want it to bleed off to, if you have 50 in it, you don't want it to bleed off to 20. But for 2 hours of it setting with 50 in it, and when I hooked the gauge up, it went down to 48. I'm good with that. I don't think it's a leak. I think it's me putting the gauge on. But I did want to show you guys, I ran the line a little different. I had them bundled up together, but what I did was I came through the bottom of the like right here, you can see where this opening is. I came through there with that line, which tucked it right up against the bed where you can't see it. And then I drilled a small hole here in this center support, this bed support, just a little bitty hole so I could get a zip tie there. So this line is good. This line up here is nice, and I didn't have to tie it to anything. And then of course we're still zip tied the T right there. But ultimately I'm gonna go ahead and put the wheels and tires back on at this point. Got the hitch on the back of this thing. I've got 5 PSI in the bags, which is what you're supposed to run in order to not damage them in any way. Just regular daily driving, right? So if you don't have anything in the bed, you don't have anything hooked up. But here's what else I've got. Obviously, we've got the green truck on the trailer. Guys, I am not gonna haul this thing down the road, but what I am going to do is I'm gonna hook up to the trailer. We're gonna get to see firsthand what the difference is, let's say if you didn't have helper bags, because I'm not gonna have anything but 5 PSI in them. And then we're gonna air them up and we're gonna cycle it, and I'm gonna show you guys, what the difference is. Because ultimately, when you lower something, you need some sort of helper bag to get things lined back up and squared up. It's just part of, these trucks. I don't know if you guys remember in that first video, they're built with a little bit of rake, because when you hook a trailer to them, it sets them even. You don't want to be tail dragging. You don't want to be on the frame. So that's what the helper bag, that's where it comes into play. So I've got, like I said, 5 PSI in it. Let's get this thing turned around, hooked up. I'm going to pull it out into the gravel here, hopefully on a somewhat level surface, and then I'm going to set you guys up on the tripod and let you watch me cycle the suspension. So before I even pull it out, guys, I had to use I couldn't get the jack to roll low enough. Big difference, because I put this in here with this truck, so there's obviously a huge difference. We're getting some squatting, but it's kind of an odd angle, so we'll pull it out and we'll take a look at it out here. Look at the difference here. Look at this thing. It is like hammered in the back. So look, 5 PSI, guys, that's all that's in there right now. And so, like I said, I'm gonna I may go to the other side. It just sucks you're not gonna be able to see as much of the trailer because of where it's at. But the other thing, bad news, is I don't have enough air hose, so I'm gonna have to use my portable tank to air this thing up. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cycle it from the 5 pounds it has up to the 90 max that they call for, so you guys can see the difference. So right now we are setting on the bump stops. All right, so that would not be a comfortable ride, that is for sure. So let's get the air. We'll set you guys up on the other side where you're not facing the sun, and hopefully you can see the cycling of it up and down. So right now there's 90 in it, and that's pretty much the max, right? So okay, so you're noticing we still got a little bit of dip here. Well, here's the thing, guys. You can position your vehicle differently, but take account that that is a 2-inch drop, and I really need to get a level one, so no drop on the actual hitch, or flip that upside down and move my ball.
So that would compensate, but we're not having any issues now. Obviously, nice and even fender gaps, even though it doesn't look like it. I know that the sun's kind of playing tricks on you. Let's go to the other side. I had to use my portable air tank to do this. Like I said, only have 50 feet of hose, and I'm over 50 feet out. But on this side, like I said, guys, the angle of the gravel and whatnot, it's really kind of playing tricks on you. I probably should take it up in my front driveway, but there's stuff going on up there right now. So either way, like I said, we're gonna have to flip that guy over, but I wanted to show you guys, you know, kind of the cycling of it up and down. And then now that you've seen that and understand how it works, I think that we can take this off the trailer. I've had this on the trailer to have additional workspace out here. I think I'm going to take this guy off the trailer now and definitely get it unloaded, put the trailer back up, and then we are going to go for a ride in this thing. Now that everything's situated, you can see we still got 90 psi in the back, and it looks absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to let it back down to I don't know, maybe 10. Got a different gauge here now. I've got a digital one that goes up to 90. This one only goes up to 60. What do we got here? 50. We'll go down to about 10. Maybe 8. It's really hard to control right here. This isn't the sturdiest place, but it's doing okay. There's roughly, what, 10 right there? When you pull it off, you lose about another pound. That's for sure. You need one of those ones that has the gauge built into the thing that airs it up. Screw this thing on there and let's go for a ride. Well, this is another day, but what I've done is I flipped my hitch over because it should have been going up anyway. And so I flipped my ball over, right? So now we have a 2-inch lift, which makes things way better, guys. And I've tried to put it on a more level surface than that first part that you watched. Now, here's what I'm gonna do. I've got 80 PSI in those bags right now. And this trailer has a ton of tongue weight because there's a battery up here, the deflector. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the other side, set you guys up on the tripod again, and I'm going to let this down to 10 PSI so you can see the difference. Like I said, it's a little more level surface. Hopefully this gives you a better idea of what's going on, and then we'll take it out and talk about the ride quality and whatnot. But let's let some air out of this thing. So I figured what we would do is we'll take a bumpy road. Now, look, guys, this isn't going to give you a great, I guess, example of how it rides. I can just only tell you from experience. Had the kit on now for probably going on a month, a little over a month maybe. But these back roads like this, and at least the roads around me they're pretty rough out in the country. They're chip and sealed is what they call it, or chip sealed. But there's a ton of imperfections in the road, and this thing does incredible. As far as like bottoming out, yeah, if you hit a big, huge bump and you don't have any air in the bags, or let's say you don't have bags, then yeah, the frame with the 4.5-inch drop on the back is going to give you some problems. This road right here is absolutely terrible. But I figured I'd just, you know, like I said, take you along and let you see kind of what we deal with. I'll try to hit some of these bumpy areas on the side. And then there's a railroad crossing up here I'd like to go over at a pretty good rate of speed to give you guys an idea. Here's some bumps on the side. It's just really, it's quiet. Of course, this truck's quiet anyway, you know, compared to newer stuff, or older stuff, I mean. You can see what I'm talking about. The road kind of smooths out here. We'll get back to this railroad crossing here in just a second, but all in all, I am extremely satisfied with the kit. I have not had a better riding shock. I'd say that my 52 comes the closest. It's got Viking double adjustables all the way around it. Now, guys, I am not one of those guys that can go out, make, you know, 1 or 2 little adjustments and tell you a huge difference. I've got to swing it, you know, 4 or 5 clicks on those adjustment knobs to really tell a difference. I've got this set, and we'll talk about that a little later, but I've got it set at the ride height, or the Ridetech kind of the starting point, where you go back 12 clicks from full, basically full stiff. And so I've been happy with that. I haven't messed with it. I've been driving it at that setting. We've driven it, I probably put 2,000 miles on it in that time. We've literally, it's like you haven't even shut this thing off. But we're coming up on this railroad crossing, and there was a little bit of a bump there you could hear, but we'll turn you around and show you it. Just a small crossing right here that we'll go over, and we may hit in the back as fast as I'm going. No, didn't hit. So you get kind of an idea of what I'm talking about. I know it's not like, without being in it, it's hard to explain how nice it rides. It is the closest to factory with a drop truck I've ever had. I actually think it rides a little nicer than factory because, like I said, I may or may not said, I like kind of a spongy ride more so than firm, right? So we don't go around curves in this. We've got Corvettes and other things we can go fast in around curves. Could you adjust it down and really handle better? Absolutely. If that's what you're looking for, that's one cool thing about adjustable shocks. You know, you can kind of dial in what you're happy with. So I'm more happy with a softer ride, even though that might cause it to hit the bump stops more often, or maybe be a little more spongy than what some people would like. That's just what I prefer. And the Beltec, the stuff I've used in the past, like the Beltec stuff, just doesn't give me that option. And so I know they have a new coilover out, guys. I have not tried that yet, but I don't see why I would need to. I'm that happy with the Ridetech shocks and struts. So back from a ride in the truck, and guys, I didn't really talk about this, or maybe I did and I just forgot, but we've only got these set to the initial setting that like Ridetech recommended. So basically 12 clicks back from full stiff is where we've got them, and I love it. It actually rides a little softer than some, and you could tighten it up if you wanted, but I kind of like a softer ride. I like a little more float to it. Now, it's not like crazy, but I'm not going into corners at like 100 with this thing. So in my opinion, yeah, it's a perfect setting, to be honest with you. I don't know that I could tell a difference between like 1 click up or down. Maybe I could if you were really, you know, really maybe closing your eyes and having somebody else take you for a ride. But all in all, I love the helper bags, guys. I wish that I would have taken you with me. I just recently hauled a car with it, and we went 12 hours, actually. 12 hours with an empty trailer one way, 12 hours with a loaded trailer another. And you guys will see why down the road. But this thing performed flawlessly. I think I had about 60 or 70 pounds in the bags. It did hit one time, but it was I don't even know why that road is open. It was such a crazy transition in the road that I think a stock vehicle would have hit. But if you're gonna be hauling or putting anything in the bed of one of these trucks, guys, if you're gonna lower one, you're gonna have to have a helper bag. There's just no way around it. You know, we only came down 4.5 inches in the back, and it is like, we don't have a ton of room for frame clearance. So you really need that helper bag for, you know, just even daily driving, in my opinion. Guys, I keep 20 pounds in it. I don't hit anywhere with 20 pounds. Now, that same place I hit with the trailer, chances are I probably would have hit with 20 pounds in it. But, you know, you're supposed to leave something in them anyway. So 20 pounds is kind of a good setting, in my opinion. It gets it to make it, when I have like 10 pounds or less in it, the truck looks like it's dragging in the back, even though it's like almost perfectly level. Generally, that's the way of it. When a truck's perfectly level, it's always going to look lower in the back. I don't know. It's like an optical illusion or something. So I keep 20 in it to make it look like it's got a little more about like 1/2 inch of a rake in the back, and it doesn't look like it's, I don't like that tail dragger look, or the Cali lean as they call it. It's just not my style. But I don't know, guys. There's more stuff to this kit, so you can get more stuff. I talked about that in the lowering video. They have a traction bar option. I don't necessarily think that we need that for a crew cab truck. It would probably come in handy on a regular cab if you're going to the racetrack or stuff. But they do have a sway bar option, which we may look at down the road as well. So all that stuff you can incorporate into this, which is really cool. It's all made to work together and fit nicely. And guys, I have I have really no complaints. The stuff that I did have complaints about, Ridetech said they were going to take care of, and it was just a few like little things like bolt sizes and whatnot, and it was a tool for when we did the lowering. So nothing on this as far as complaints go, as far as fitment goes. And guys, you're gonna have to go check it out. So go check out Ridetech's website. I will list it in the description down below, as well as the parts that I used here, guys, all the tools that I used. And then of course, go check out twamotorsports.com. Pick yourself up a shirt, a hoodie, a hat, a sticker. While you're down there doing all that, guys, subscribe, hit that bell notification that notifies you every time we drop a new video, and stay tuned to see what we work on next.